రుచించి ఆనందిద్దాం తిరుపతి భీమాస్ మసాలా.
రుచించి ఆనందిద్దాం, లోకాన్ని మైమరచి జీవిద్దాం. తిరుపతి భీమాస్ మసాలా.
अरे मैच इतनी जल्दी खत्म हो गया।
सब छुट्टियों में घूमने गए, अब हम कब जाएंगे?
मुझे भी जाना है पापा।
हम भी छुट्टियों में घूमने जाएंगे।
आपने झूठा वादा क्यों किया? घर की ईएमआई देने के बाद कुछ बचता है क्या?
झूठा नहीं, सच्चा वादा है, क्योंकि मैंने अपना होम लोन स्टेट बैंक में शिफ्ट कर दिया है। अब ईएमआई बहुत कम हो गया है। ईएमआई हुआ कम, घूमने चले हम।
The CEO of HMRI, Health Management and Research Institute, a not-for-profit organization based out of Hyderabad. Today, HMRI serves vulnerable people in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Karnataka and Orissa. HMRI was born in 2007 as a project within Satyam Foundation, which was the CSR arm of Satyam at that point of time. In 2010, Piramal Enterprises and its visionary chairman, Mr. Ajay G. Piramal, and their family came forward to support HMRI as part of their CSR under Piramal Foundation. Piramal Foundation today works in multiple areas to help vulnerable people in India. Piramal Foundation has started an organization called Sarvajal, which provides clean drinking water in fluoride hit, arsenic hit, and where there is no clean water and potable water. They work in Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and they are expanding to other cities like Delhi, especially in the slums and for school children. Piramal also supports another organization called Piramal Education, which primarily teaches or helps headmasters of schools so that they run the schools in a way where children love to come to school and improve the outcomes of the school. Apart from that, Mr. Piramal also supports midday meals for more than 100,000 children every day in slums of Mumbai and other places as well. Piramal also has another important intervention where they get youngsters and help them learn to understand what true India is. All of us know the distinction between Bharat and India. India is what all of us know: middle class, English speaking classes, urban people. Whereas the true India, 78% of the people or 70% of the people live in rural areas, and hardly any media or anybody is interested in how these people live, what challenges they face. So these youngsters spend or immerse themselves in rural areas and learn the real problems face to face and live in slums if they have to, live in villages, live in huts along with poor people, and later they work with these headmasters in various schools to transform. The idea is that it just takes a few good people or few good men and women to transform a country. The time has come for India to rebuild itself. The time is no longer there for us to look elsewhere, that somebody else would come and solve our problems and we'll depend on somebody else. We have the bandwidth, we have the competence, we have the money, we have the resources, we have the capability. What it requires is people with will who are willing to work at the edges, at the periphery of the society to make the transformation. So HMRI, as part of the Piramal Foundation and Piramal CSR, is envisioning that we create scalable, technology leveraged solutions to augment healthcare, especially in the primary healthcare space. India has progressed a lot in the last so many years. Today we have world-class tertiary care institutions. Our private sector probably is second to none in the world in terms of the quality of care or the facilities of the technology that is there in healthcare. But what's sadly missing is the basic healthcare being available to the most vulnerable people in urban areas, slums and rural areas. Just to give you a sense, the maternal mortality and infant mortality figures of rural areas are worse than some of the sub-Saharan African countries, while the urban middle class infant mortality rates will be comparable with the best, whether it is United States or France or Germany or any other developed country. It's about less than 5 or 10 for every 1,000 live births. The same thing when it comes to a national average, anywhere between 60 to 70. But these numbers do not tell the whole truth. If I'm born to a tribal and I'm poor and I live away from a city, the chances of the infant mortality will be around 150 to 200. That means there's a 24% chance that I may not survive. Same thing is true of mother mortality as well. Mother mortality all over the world is around 10 for every 100,000 live births, or maybe less than that in some countries like France. But in India, it's anywhere between 125 to 150. But in urban India, among the middle classes and the upper middle classes, the numbers will be comparable to the best in the world. However, if I'm a tribal, the chances are that the number could be 700 to 800 per 100,000 live births. So we're talking of international benchmarks 70 times more than what the international benchmarks are. The key question that all of us have to ask ourselves: do we need to live with this? Do we need to tolerate this? It took close to 6 decades of independence for us to bring our general life expectancy from about 37-40 to almost 64 today. But it took us 60 years. Our infant mortality rate probably was about 50% chance for a child to survive. That's why the families used to be large. Because if there are 10 children born, chances are 5 to 6 children would be dead. If you're poor, it's possible that 7 children could be dead. Just about 4 decades ago, 5 decades ago, we know people, after 7 children died, only 1 person surviving. So that from there, we have come a long way. But it took us 60 years. The key question is, do we need to have the patience to wait for another 60 years to bring our numbers closer to the best in the world? Today we have the money. At least in 70s and 80s, we used to suffer from lack of funds, but today that's not the issue. The Indian economy is thriving, and we have the capability, we have the technical competence. So how do we solve all these problems? So HMRI thought it can do its 2 cents worth in the field of primary health care in supporting public health architecture. Nobody can supplant or completely eliminate the public health in the public sector. That is the largest architecture that has been created in the country. But over a period of time, multiple gaps have developed. There are execution issues, there are human resource issues, there are competence issues. There are small challenges. If overcome, no reason why our public sector healthcare in the primary care space can't deliver to our people. So the key question therefore is what can be done. So HMRI decided to build a few services. The first of the service that we built was a health helpline. The idea was born out of some work that we did in slums of Hyderabad long ago, when chikungunya was an epidemic, was rampant in Hyderabad. I used to work for an IT company as a senior vice president at that point of time, and my wife suffered from chikungunya, and she could not move to the bed, and we could not take her to the doctor. So I just called a doctor whether he could come home, and the concept of family doctors is no longer there now. So I consulted this doctor. The doctor said, "Look, Balaji, looks like she's suffering from chikungunya. All the symptoms say that. So let's do one thing. You give her paracetamol." So, and one other thing that he warned me, said that she must take rest 23 hours by 24, 23 by 24. Only 1 hour is allowed to move, either to go to the toilet or to have breakfast to lunch. So the first day was fine. The second day the temperature came down. She was bored, and she wanted to move and get back to work. She's a working woman. I had to bribe my children and my servant maid to see to it, ensure that she's in the bed 23 by 24. Bought some videos and put a television there, and bought some magazines so that she's comfortable in the bed. And 3 days later, she was fine. We did a survey to figure out what happened to the poor people in the slums where we were serving. We found, interestingly, on an average, a poor person spent 1,500 rupees for an episode of chikungunya. When a senior vice president in a company can spend less than 200 rupees, or less than that, actually the medicine hardly cost anything, not even 10 rupees. Why should a poor person spend 1,500 rupees for an episode of chikungunya? That's how the idea of a call center was born. If I could get healthcare advice for a minor ailment like a fever, why can't a poor person do that? That's how we set up the first health helpline in state of Andhra Pradesh. Later, the government encouraged us to enter into a public-private partnership with them to scale it up. We scaled it up to set up a more than 400-seat health helpline, where in a very short while, we became the world's largest health helpline, receiving close to 50,000 calls a day. Even the best health helpline in UK, NHS Direct, used to receive around 25,000 calls around that time. So that is one service. We provide multiple services on the health helpline. You could talk to a doctor, you could talk to a clinical psychologist if you're feeling depressed, if you feel anxious, and you could get information about any health facility around Andhra Pradesh. Apart from that, if anybody had a complaint against the public health system, that they go to a place and there's no doctor, there's no paramedic, medicines are not there, they could always give a complaint. So this technology, a simple technology called a call center technology, could bring healthcare to the doorstep of a person. And thanks to the telecom revolution, even the poor today have mobiles. They have access to phones, which was a challenge in 70s and 80s and 90s. But once the mobile service costs have come down and the mobile prices have come down, almost everybody has got a mobile today. So you're just a phone call away from healthcare, for health advice. Now this does not supplant the need for doctors. If a person needs to go and see a doctor, they need to go and see a doctor. But at least it's a first line of defense. Imagine a person, a woman in a rural area at 10:30 has a child who's suffering from diarrhea, let's say, and she doesn't know whether she has to rush, hunt for some transport and go to the nearest town to take care of her child's health, or can she find some advice? So that's when this first line of defense, health helpline, helps. Today we run that in Assam, Rajasthan, Karnataka and Maharashtra. So that is one service that we have. No reason why we can't set it up all over the country, and that we solve this problem. We also found an interesting thing. Telephone being an anonymous medium, a lot of people could ask uncomfortable, sensitive questions. A lot of youngsters who want to know about sexuality or have doubts about it, or they have a lot of myths, or they want clarity, they can always call and then find out. And that's the beauty of a health helpline. We believe that nationally, if we can set up a health helpline, we should be able to solve a large number of problems for a large number of people at a very low cost, extremely low cost. It doesn't cost much. It costs less than $50 per annum per capita. The second service was born out of some study that some of the senior doctors conducted, where they found who accesses a primary health center. Just to give you a sense, Andhra Pradesh is almost 1/12 of the population of India. So you can just multiply that by a number of 12 times of whatever we talk about. May not be exactly the same, but you'll get a sense. Andhra Pradesh is served by 1,500 primary health centers. Now they have increased it to close to 2,000 now, added more primary health centers. And we found we wanted to ask this question, who actually goes to primary health center? We found 90% to 95% of the people who go to a PHC come within 3 to 5 kilometers range, and only 5% to 7% come beyond that. Then, thanks to the comfort with technology, I always keep saying this, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Since many of us came from the technology background, we thought let's do something to figure out what happens around. So we took a GIS map and we ring fenced each of the primary health centers and put a ring of around 5 kilometers around a primary health center, and try to figure out how many people live beyond this 5 kilometers of a primary health center. Interestingly, we found close to 46 million of the 60 million that live in rural areas were beyond the 5 kilometers. That means literally a huge swath of people were not accessing a primary health center. Now there could be many reasons for it. There's no point in pointing fingers, criticizing, saying this, saying that. So the key question therefore is how do you solve this problem? So we created what is called the Village Health Outreach Program. We created a van which goes once in a month to these villages. There are paramedics who can do some basic diagnostics, identify people, screen them and refer them to higher hospitals and deliver medicine, what we call in Hyderabad, Darwaza mein Dawkhana. At the doorstep of the people deliver these services. Today these services are there in Andhra Pradesh, in Rajasthan and in Assam. And again, these services don't cost more than $1 per capita per annum. There is no reason why, especially these insidious diseases like hypertension, diabetes, which no longer are rich man's and urban diseases, no longer the lifestyle diseases. These diseases have spread even in rural areas today. Close to 1 million plus people were identified with hypertension and diabetes in Andhra Pradesh, and they were given medicines to manage the disease. And they say India is going to become the diabetes capital of the world in just about 10 to 20 years' time. So the key question is, can we avoid it? Can we manage it much better to reduce the mortality and morbidity? The third service, of course, again is technology leveraged, created a telemedicine center. There are close to 40 telemedicine centers that we have set up and in the process of setting up in India. One of them is a very interesting one, very close to my heart, which is run out of Araku Valley, which is in Visakhapatnam district, where we serve close to 150 villages, and many of the tribal hamlets are extremely small. That's how you'll understand India. India is like an onion, you peel one, you keep moving like that. We thought we solved the last mile problem with our vans, but we figured out there are people living in the last foot and the last yard. How do you solve that? And these hamlets are about 5 homes, 10 homes, 15 homes is the biggest village that we have. So we created a motorcycle borne paramedics who go there and they get screened, then they come to our telemedicine center in Araku, where we have an MO, a GP, a general physician, who links these people to a center in Hyderabad. So it is possible to solve many of our problems with technology. I'm not saying that we can solve all problems, but definitely a large number of our problems can be solved with technology. It only requires commitment, and our vision is that we serve at least 500 million people who do not have access to healthcare services. We believe equity is when you create accessibility, affordability and availability. Any one of them not being there, equity is not there. And in a society, it is our duty to provide basic education and primary health care and clean drinking water and sanitation to everybody. Only then can we say the distinction between Bharat and India has been removed. Till such time, all of us need to work. I'd invite all of you to participate and partner with HMRI, and those of you who might want to serve your own villages will be very happy to design appropriate interventions so that you can serve those who are needy. Thank you very much. Namaste.
రుచించి ఆనందిద్దాం తిరుపతి భీమాస్ మసాలా
రుచించి ఆనందిద్దాం లోకాన్ని మైమరచి జీవిద్దాం తిరుపతి భీమాస్ మసాలా.
अरे मैच इतनी जल्दी खत्म हो गया।
सब छुट्टियों में घूमने गए। पापा हम कब जाएंगे?
मुझे भी जाना है पापा।
हम भी छुट्टियों में घूमने जाएंगे।
आपने झूठा वादा क्यों किया? घर की ईएमआई देने के बाद कुछ बचता है क्या?
झूठा नहीं, सच्चा वादा है, क्योंकि मैंने अपना होम लोन स्टेट बैंक पे शिफ्ट कर दिया है। अब ईएमआई बहुत कम हो गया है। ईएमआई हुआ कम, घूमने चले हम।